All right, so we're diving deep today
Same.
into Conrad Reicher's Beyond the Echo Chamber.
Oh, excellent choice.
Masculinity, social media,
Yeah.
religion, conspiracy theories.
Big topic.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And Reicher, he really focuses on this idea of logic and reason
Right.
as tools to kind of navigate this world.
Yeah, and you know what I like about Riker is that he doesn't get all
Right.
heady and academic. He uses real life examples. He's got a very conversational style. So it's really accessible.
Right. And that's what we're going for here. We want to pull out,
Absolutely.
the most interesting parts of these excerpts.
Yeah.
And figure out what we can all learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, you really need a toolkit to sort through all this information and form your own opinions.
Especially with social media, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, have you ever noticed how you just see the same opinions over and over again?
All the time. Yeah. That's what Riker calls the echo chamber.
Wow.
It's that online space where you're just surrounded by people who agree with you.
Totally. I've definitely been sucked into those echo chambers before.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to just get caught up in that vortex of agreement.
Yeah, but Riker warns that these echo chambers, they really limit your exposure to different viewpoints. And they can even make you more susceptible to misinformation.
Right.
He uses this great analogy of of a sound bouncing back and forth in a closed room.
Okay.
The sound never interacts with anything new.
Right.
So it's just the same thing over and over again.
It's like we're trapped in our own little world.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's the algorithm too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's feeding us content that we already agree with.
Yeah, so it creates these filter bubbles where you just see what you want to see.
No wonder people are so divided.
Exactly. And then you add in confirmation bias, which is that human tendency to seek out information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs.
So even if we do see something different, we're more likely to just dismiss it.
Totally.
Right, yeah.
It's like our brains are wired to resist anything that challenges our worldview.
So how do we get out of these echo chambers?
Well, Riker, he has a few suggestions.
Okay.
He says, we need to actively seek out diverse sources of information.
Right.
We need to engage with people who hold different views.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of our own confirmation biases.
So step outside of our comfort zones.
Exactly. It can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's so important for growth.
Okay, so that's social media and echo chambers. Riker also talks about masculinity.
Yeah, he calls it a contemporary conundrum.
Right. It's a big one.
Yeah.
And he traces it way back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors.
Yeah, he brings up the Kungsan people.
Right, that hunter-gatherer society.
Exact.
It's fascinating to think.
Yeah. He talks about the hunter-gatherer hypothesis, which suggests that men's traditional role as hunters, requiring strength and aggression, may have shaped modern perceptions of masculinity.
I wonder how much is biology and how much is just cultural.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
And Riker doesn't shy away from the changing landscape of masculinity.
Right.
The social media and #MeToo and all that.
It's a lot to unpack.
Absolutely.
And then there's this idea of the new man, right? Someone who's more in touch with his emotions.
Yeah, more open, more vulnerable.
It's interesting to think about how that fits in.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
And speaking of complexity, Riker argues that Stoicism can be a really valuable tool for modern life.
Yeah. Stoicism, it's all about focusing on what you can control, right?
Exactly.
Seems pretty relevant these days.
It is. Riker, he gives this example of being stuck in traffic.
Okay.
Instead of getting frustrated,
a
Stoic would recognize that they can't control the traffic, but they can control their reaction.
Okay.
So they might use that time to practice mindfulness or listen to a podcast or just accept the situation.
Right.
It's a good reminder that we have more control over our thoughts than we realize.
Totally. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about choosing how to respond to them.
Exactly. And Riker also talks about the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism.
Okay.
Wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, and how these virtues can be applied in our daily lives.
Okay, so we've got, escaping echo chambers, understanding masculinity, and this idea of Stoicism.
It's a start.
It's a lot, yeah. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's talk about critical thinking.
Okay.
Riker calls it a weapon against misinformation.
It's like we need our own BS detectors.
Pretty much. He uses this example of investing.
Yeah.
Some people rely on gut feelings or those hot stock tips. But successful investors like Warren Buffett, they use critical thinking.
Yeah.
They analyze the market. They look at company fundamentals.
So it's about taking a step back, evaluating the information,
Exactly.
and forming your own conclusion.
It's not just following the crowd.
Right.
And Riker, he has some tips for developing those critical thinking skills.
Okay, like what?
Well, he suggests reading widely,
Mm-hmm.
engaging in thoughtful discussions,
Yeah.
and questioning your own beliefs.
So being open-minded but not gullible.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about conspiracy theories?
Ah, yes. Riker acknowledges that we all have this tendency to look for patterns to try to explain things, especially when things are uncertain.
Yeah.
And that's what makes conspiracy theories so appealing.
They offer simple explanations.
Yeah, they make you feel like you're in the know.
Right.
But they can be dangerous. And social media plays a huge role in spreading them.
Right. We talked about echo chambers.
Exactly. And confirmation bias.
The perfect storm.
It is.
Yeah.
And Riker uses some really powerful examples.
Like what?
Well, like the anti-vaccination movement, that's
Right.
led to a resurgence of preventable diseases.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is.
And then there's climate change denial,
Mm-hmm.
also fueled by conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's slowing down progress on one of the most important issues of our time.
So these theories aren't just harmless fun.
No, they can have real-world consequences.
Okay, so we got to be careful.
We do. Riker urges us to be discerning consumers of information.
Yeah.
To use our critical thinking skills to evaluate sources and be aware of our own biases.
So we've got our echo chamber escape plan, our Stoic toolkit,
Right.
and our critical thinking BS detectors.
We're getting there.
Yeah, Riker's giving us a lot to think about.
He is. He wants us to understand the world better.
Yeah.
And to engage with it in a more thoughtful way.
It's a tall order.
It is.
But I think it's an important one.
Absolutely.
All right, so what else does Riker explore?
Well, one topic he touches on is the relevance of religion in a world that's becoming more secular.
Yeah, that's a big one. Does he think religion is incompatible
Not necessarily.
with logic and reason?
He acknowledges that religion has played a huge role in human history, shaping morals, values, and communities.
Right. Right.
But he also explores the challenges that religion faces today.
Yeah, with science and secular values.
Exactly.
So it's like there's room for both.
That's what he seems to be suggesting.
Okay.
You know, he points out that religion can be a source of both conflict and good. He uses the example of the civil rights movement.
Right, driven by religious leaders.
Exactly.
But then there's also religious extremism.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
Right.
And then there's the relationship between religion and science.
Yeah, they often seem at odds.
They do. But Riker suggests that we need to find a balance, recognizing that both faith and reason have their limitation.
It's like we need both our hearts and our minds.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then there's the decline in religious affiliation. Riker says it's not necessarily that religion is dying,
right,
but that it's evolving.
People are finding meaning and purpose in new ways.
Right, maybe through personal spirituality.
Exactly.
Okay, so echo chambers, masculinity, stoicism, critical thinking, conspiracy theories, and the role of religion.
We've covered a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But it feels like we're starting to see things
I think so.
a little differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well, Riker actually gives us a framework for putting these ideas into practice.
Okay.
He dives into what he calls the ABCs of critical thinking.
Like a crash course in how to be a more thoughtful person.
Exactly.
I like it.
He emphasizes analyzing and evaluating information, questioning assumptions, challenging beliefs, and seeking out diverse perspectives.
So it's about being humble.
Right, recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Okay.
He also talks about logical fallacies.
Ugh, those are the worst.
Yeah, like straw man arguments and appeals to emotion.
Right, when people try to win an argument
Yeah.
without using logic.
Exactly.
So we need to be able to spot those.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, remember masculinity.
Yeah, the contemporary conundrum.
He comes back to that.
Okay.
He really dives into the challenges and opportunities facing men today.
Right, we talked about the hunter-gatherer thing,
Yeah.
the new man.
He goes deeper.
Okay.
He talks about how traditional norms are being challenged.
Right, and what that means for men.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're getting a clearer picture here.
You think so?
We've got critical thinking, navigating echo chambers, and misinformation, insights into masculinity,
Yeah.
and the role of religion and philosophy.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
Yeah.
But Riker, he doesn't just leave us with these concepts. he actually challenges us to put them into action.
Absolutely.
He talks about the practical applications of logic and reason in our lives.
Yes, he does.
So it's not just thinking critically, it's living critically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Well, let's not keep our listeners waiting any longer.
Yeah.
Let's dive into those practical applications.
Let's do it.
And see what Riker has to say about navigating this crazy world.
I'm ready. So, Riker, he suggests that we can actually apply logic and reason to our relationships.
Okay, so we're not just talking about like big societal issues.
No, this is personal stuff.
Okay, relationships. I mean, those are built on emotions.
Of course.
Right. How do we bring logic into that?
Well, Riker argues that a healthy dose of logic and reason can actually enhance your communication.
Oh.
It can help with conflict resolution.
Yeah, because sometimes emotions can cloud your judgment.
They can.
Especially during an argument.
Yeah, you get caught up in the heat of the moment. Right. Exactly.
And you say things you don't mean.
So how do we actually do this?
Well, Riker suggests being aware of logical fallacies and cognitive biases so that you can avoid making assumptions and jumping to conclusions.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you're arguing with your partner and you say something like, "You always do this."
Oh, yeah, guilty.
Or, "You never listen to me."
I've definitely said that.
That's a hasty generalization, which is a logical fallacy.
Right.
You're making a sweeping statement based on limited evidence.
Okay, so instead of saying you never listen, what should you say?
Try something like, "I feel like I'm not being heard when you interrupt me."
Okay, so it's more specific.
Exactly.
More focused on the actual issue.
And less likely to trigger defensiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Riker also talks about communication styles. What one person might see as logical, another person might find insensitive. So being aware of those differences can prevent misunderstandings.
It's like mindful communication.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's relationships.
Yeah.
What about this whole idea of truth?
Ah, yes. The decline of truth.
It feels like we're living in a post-truth world.
It does, doesn't it?
Everyone's got their own facts.
Riker, he acknowledges that this is a complex issue. It's not an easy fix.
Right.
He points to social media, political polarization, and the erosion of trust in institutions.
Yeah, social media seems to be a big part of it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like misinformation spreads so quickly online.
It does. He uses the example of the 2016 election. Where fake news had a real impact.
Right. It was everywhere.
It was. And it showed us how vulnerable we are to manipulation.
It's hard to know what to believe anymore.
It is. But Riker emphasizes critical thinking, media literacy, and evidence-based reasoning.
So be skeptical.
Yes.
But not cynical.
Exactly. Question what you see online.
Right. Fact check.
Do your research.
And be aware of our own biases.
Absolutely. We tend to believe what we want to believe.
Right. Even if it's not true.
So Riker's giving us tools to navigate this.
It's like a guidebook for the information age.
It is.
Yeah.
And he does offer some hope.
Okay, good.
He ends the book with a call to action, urging us to embrace logic and reason.
To make the world a better place?
Exactly. He sees logic and reason as the foundation for progress.
Okay, I like that. So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, it's not. He believes in our ability to choose truth, to choose understanding.
Okay.
Now, what about freedom of speech?
Ah, that's a big one. Always a hot topic.
It is, and Riker calls it the freedom of speech fiasco.
Okay, what makes it a fiasco?
Well, he acknowledges that freedom of speech is a fundamental right.
Right.
But it's not absolute.
Right, there are limits.
Like yelling fire in a crowded theater.
Right, or inciting violence.
Exactly.
Where's the line?
That's the question. Riker says we need to find a balance.
Between protecting free speech and preventing harm.
That's tricky.
It is. He talks about the British way, where hate speech is criminalized, but context is considered.
So you're not stifling legitimate expression.
Right. It's about protecting people without shutting down dialogue.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Riker emphasizes education. We need to teach people how to think critically.
Yeah.
How to engage in civil discourse.
Right, like speech etiquette.
Exactly.
For tough conversations.
And he stresses the importance of listening.
Okay.
Even to opposing viewpoints.
Even if you disagree.
Yes. Because shutting down those voices can be more harmful in the long run.
It's like that Voltaire quote, right?
Exactly.
I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
It's about defending the principle, even when you hate the content.
Okay, so open dialogue, respectful debate.
That's the goal.
All right, so we've got freedom of speech.
What about morality?
The big one. Where do our morals come from?
Right. Are we born with them? Do we learn them?
Riker tackles this head on.
Okay.
He looks at both philosophy and science.
So it's like a history of ethics.
It is. He talks about Socrates, Aristotle, Kant, Bentham.
Big name.
All these different frameworks for understanding morality.
Fascinating.
It is. And then he goes into the biological roots.
All right.
He talks about kin selection, reciprocal altruism.
So morality as a survival mechanism.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
But he also brings up the role of emotions.
Right, because we don't always make decisions based on pure logic.
Exactly. He cites Jonathan Haidt's work,
Okay.
who argues that our moral judgments are often driven by intuition.
We have a gut feeling about right and wrong.
And those feelings are powerful.
They are.
And then there's the debate between objective and relative morality.
Right. Are there universal moral truths?
That's the question. Riker explores both sides. He says there are some core principles that seem universal.
Like fairness, avoiding harm.
Exactly.
But then there's also the context of each situation.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, it's complicated.
He also talks about the trolley problem.
Oh, yeah, the classic ethical dilemma.
Right, where you have to choose between two bad options.
It really makes you think.
It does.
Right.
Riker encourages thoughtful reflection because there are rarely easy answers.
Okay, so we've got morality. What else?
Well, he circles back to religion and its role in the modern world.
Yeah, with all the secularization and science, is there still a place for religion?
That's what Riker explores. He says that religion is still a powerful force.
Okay.
It shapes values, beliefs, communities.
Right.
But it can also be a source of conflict.
Right, a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And he talks about the relationship between religion and science.
Right. Can you have both faith and reason?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Riker says we need to find a balance. And remember, the decline in religious affiliation.
Yeah.
He sees it as an evolution, not an extinction.
Okay, so religion is changing.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Truth, freedom of speech, morality, religion.
Riker is taking us on quite a journey.
He is. It's a lot to process.
It is.
But I think it's making us think differently.
I think so, too.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well, there's still more to explore.
Okay.
Riker covers so many topics.
Okay.
But one thing that stands out is his focus on logic and reason.
Right. Those are the tools he keeps coming back to.
They are. He wants us to use them in every aspect of our lives.
So it's not just about thinking.
No.
It's about doing.
It's about living a more examined life.
I like that. A more examined life.
Yeah. So we were talking about how Riker wants us to use these tools in all aspects of our lives.
Right, right.
You know, he really digs into this idea of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
Which, with everything going on, it's more relevant than ever.
It's scary how fast things spread online.
It really is. And Riker, he argues that, you know, social media and the internet, they've created this breeding ground for these ideas to take hold.
And those algorithms, they don't help.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. It's all about engagement.
Yeah.
Not accuracy.
So the most sensational stuff, the stuff that gets you riled up, that's what gets shared.
It's like we're addicted to outrage.
In a way we are. And Riker, he gets into the psychology of it too.
Okay.
Like, why are people drawn to these theories?
Yeah, what's the appeal?
Well, he suggests that they offer a sense of order.
Yeah.
Like, in a world that feels chaotic, they make you feel like you're in control.
Like you've got it all figured out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also provide a sense of belonging.
Okay.
Like you're part of this special group.
The people who know the real truth.
Exactly. And they offer a scapegoat.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to blame someone else
than
to face complex problems.
So it's like a coping mechanism.
In a way, it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, you know, Riker doesn't just, you know, point out the problem.
Right.
He offers solutions, too.
Okay. Like what?
Well, he emphasizes critical thinking.
Okay.
Media literacy. Fact-checking.
So question everything.
Yeah. Be skeptical.
Be aware of those biases.
Don't just believe everything you see.
Right. Right. It's like we need to develop our own intellectual immune systems.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's misinformation.
Yeah.
What about political correctness?
Ah, another hot topic.
Always.
Riker calls it the political correctness paradox.
Okay, a paradox. How so?
Well, he starts by saying that, the intentions
Mm-hmm.
behind political correctness are good.
Right, it's about being inclusive.
Yeah, being sensitive, respectful.
But he says the way it's implemented
Mm-hmm.
can be counterproductive.
That's the paradox.
Okay, how so?
Well, it can stifle free speech.
Mm-hmm.
It can hinder open dialogue.
It can create a culture of fear.
Exactly.
Like you're afraid to say anything.
Yeah, you're afraid of offending someone.
Right, even if you don't mean to.
And that can actually be harmful.
Okay.
Because it prevents us from having those tough conversations.
The ones we need to have.
We need to be able to discuss controversial issues.
Without shutting down opposing views.
Exactly.
So how do we find that balance?
Well, Riker suggests focusing on intent, context, and impact.
So be mindful of your language.
Yeah, don't be deliberately hurtful.
But also be willing to engage with ideas that challenge you.
That's where growth happens.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think what really stands out about Riker's book is that he weaves together all these different threads.
Yeah, it's not just one topic.
No, it's everything.
Right, it's how to think.
It's how to live.
Yeah.
He wants us to be critical thinkers. He wants us to be self-aware.
To embrace nuance.
Yeah, to engage with complexity.
And to use logic and reason as tools to navigate this world.
Because let's face it, the world is messy.
It is, yeah.
It's complicated.
And it's changing fast.
But Riker reminds us that we have the power to choose how we respond.
To choose logic, to choose reason.
To choose truth.
And to use those choices to build a better world.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
And I think it's one that we all need to hear.
Absolutely. So to our listener, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From echo chambers to misinformation to political correctness.
To the decline of truth.
To the nature of morality.
It's been a journey.
It has. But the real work, it starts now.
It does.
Take these ideas, these tools, and see how they apply to your own life.
And keep those conversations going.
Absolutely.
Keep questioning, keep learning.
And thinking.
And most importantly, keep diving deep.
That's what it's all about.